Welcome to a new feature that I'm introducing here and now. It's about building a Beetleweight fighting robot. Now, every month or so, if I can be bothered, I will be asking the all-important question, have I finished my Beetle? The answer currently, and obviously, is no. But I have done this. Now, Robotic Idiotic was initially created to showcase me designing, building and fighting a Beetleweight fighting robot, and then committing my failures to YouTube. Now, I am, or certainly was at that point, the very bottom of the rung. I had no experience in electronics, very little in mechanical design and all that sort of stuff, and Robotic Idiotic was trying to show to anyone that building a robot is easy, or it can be if you know what you're doing. If we roll back to 2018, regular followers will know that I competed in the European Beetleweight Championships set up by Kinematic Event. Those of you that watched that series know I spent a dismal 12 seconds in the arena against a very powerful horizontal spinner called Spinzer. Of course, the oil barrel armour didn't really stand a chance. At the end of the very last video in that series, there was a teaser. Volta will return. In January 2019, I started to act upon that. I bought some HDPE, some 10mm thick stuff, and some new wheels. New, grippier, better, easier to use wheels. There is more than one. I'm not just going in one wheel. And then I promptly abandoned that idea and built the Amway Scale Arena. But recently, earlier this year, whilst being stuck at home, I drew a doodle. This doodle, to be exact. I thought long and hard about reinventing Volta, but the more I looked at the sketch, the more I realised how feasible it could actually be. Being locked down with no events coming up that I could reasonably get to, and with quite a lot of other events being cancelled this year, I thought I could at least have a decent crack at redesigning Volta ready for when events do pick up. In 2018, my limit was October of that year. That was my deadline to get a robot up and running, and although it didn't really work, I did get it into the arena with the help of some very friendly roboteers. But with this design, I haven't really got a time limit to work towards. I just want it finished, hopefully by next summer. It's kind of like a soft time limit. I'm not aiming for anything in particular. Now, as we know, Volta was poorly designed originally. I sat down with Fusion 360 to plan it out before I actually build anything. I don't really want to go into making something on paper and it not working when we get to the actual building stage. Ballsing it up is something that I'm quite good at. That's what we're going to talk about in this episode. We're going to talk about how I designed, or redesigned should I say, the new look Volta. This is how Volta looks in accordance to our new, more interesting design sketch that I did in the notebook. It's a little bit rough, it's not 100% amazing, but I kind of wanted to redesign it so I knew all the components fit on the inside first. But we'll go through it and I'll show you how it came to fruition. Okay, so this is the initial skeleton. These are the HDPE parts that we are going to cut out I think first, with all the relative holes for adding in the motors and the back of the hinge for the flipper. As you can see, I am opting for a more angled sort of design. Original Volta was very slab-sided, which didn't really help. It's a little bit wider. It's still kind of roughly the same design. If a little bit tweaked. I did like the look of Volta initially. It reminded me of a very old school Robot Wars type of competitor. So I designed all the parts first, and they are all individual. So I can actually take away each section and show you a bulkhead by itself. So that's where the motor will sit. The next part, when this was all done, I could add the polycarbonate with the intention of adding polycarb to the side. So we're going to have nice clear view of the wheels, and we're also going to have LEDs running on the inside to kind of illuminate it from the inside out as part of the power light that we have to be in accordance to the rules. I've got some 3mm polycarb, which is apparently good enough. The chassis is pretty much identical to the chassis from original Volta. That's going to be 3mm thick polycarb as well. These might be a bit problematic because I'm kind of uncertain how they're going to attach to the HDPE on the sides and to the chassis. I think I might use, again, 3mm HDPE, maybe a bit thicker if I can find it. 3mm is what I went for the design here. Another important thing to talk about, I actually mocked up the DC motor and the hub that I bought, which we'll talk about in another video when I go through the components. I know you can probably find them online, but I did this. I remade the motor to put into our model to make sure that they fit together in the HDPE. So there is actually another one somewhere too. That gap between the two was a problem, which is why it ended up being a little bit wider. Oh, that's how it looks with the wheels that we've got. With the polycarb, it was important for me to know how high I needed the wheel to ride off the ground. So if everything does go according to plan, when we print out the sheet to apply to the HDPE for me to cut the right size out, the wheel should sit perfectly enough to give enough ground clearance while still keeping the wedge nicely planted to the ground. Hopefully, anyway. So the flipper, I'm gonna, again, when we buy the 3mm HDPE to go on the front wedges, we're going to use the same stuff for the top as well. The 10mm stuff will be used to make the flipper arms that the top panel will sit on and be screwed into. And this front panel here, I'm hoping we can get some proper metal, not an old barbecue. I'll see if I can find some titanium for a proper wedge. See how much weight we've got left over. If it really does become a problem, then I can probably get away with some more HDPE. I would like a proper metal flipper. If I'm fighting spinners, that will be the first thing to go. So that's going to have to be properly armoured. Fits in like this to the chassis, which explains the gap, because check out these Fusion 360 scales. We can articulate it to open up. And I needed to do that because I needed to know how much clearance we needed at the back. And should open up fully with that gap. Again, but this is something that we can change at a later point. So in there we have the weapon motor, the LiPo, the receiver, and the two 12 volt motors. And then we'll add in holes at the relevant time for things like adding wires to our LEDs and the removable link. Everything else I'm kind of confident will fit in there. Considering I've bought a new LiPo that is quite compact, I think we're on a pretty good start, you know. So initially we are going to cut out all of the HDPE parts. So I have already rendered down the individual parts down to a PDF and put them into photo editing software. So when we print out, the lines will show up for me to create a cutting guide. Each part for the HDPE has been mapped out, ready for cutting. And if I follow these guides, it should be accurate to our 360 model. And then we're going to get some big screws, attach the bulkheads to the back panels, and then these to the bulkheads. And it's more in line with how I've seen other people build Beetleweights. And I think, especially compared to my original design, I think this way, well, it's a lot more in depth. I think it's going to be a lot more successful. Using better materials, I've actually sat down and planned what I'm going to do, and I think we will be okay. The main idea is to last longer than 12 seconds. If I last longer than 12 seconds, then that's a winner in my eyes. But it would be nice to last an entire event at least. The CAD is quite basic in mechanical terms, but to make our cut list for the parts for the HDPE, it's been quite useful. I have uploaded pictures onto the Team OTT Facebook page, which is why there is 2 versions in one picture. One of them was just slightly too small, so I had to go back and redo it to make our motors fit without touching, creating a dangerous short should that ever happen. I kind of wanted to avoid that, so we made it a little bit wider. All that we really have to do now before we start cutting up the plastic is to print out the cut sheet, apply it to the plastic, and then get the jigsaw out, which will probably be a few steps down the line. I think next time I will go through some of the components, the new components that I've got. I don't know, maybe we'll give them a test. We'll make another test meal like what we did with Another One Bites the Dustpan in the previous Beetleweight build diary. But anyway, thank you for watching this. I hope it's been interesting and interesting. I'm still planning on doing other little projects every so often, so keep an eye on them. Yeah, it's a new feature that I hope is interesting and that you will enjoy watching and learning along with me. Check me out on Facebook, Team OTT. You can see some of the build diary stuff way before Robotic Idiotic gets a look in. And I will see you in the next episode of Have I Finished My Beetle? Which will inevitably be no. Like the last one will be a yes.